All right, guys, so we just got finished talking about the 5 elements of any story. Those 5 elements are plot, theme, character, setting, and conflict. And so we're going to hit each one of these kind of in their own special way, with the exception of setting. It's really simple and it's important, but I don't want to delve into it at all right now. I mean, it's time and it's place. And as long as you got those two things in your story, then you're good to go. What I want to do right now is I want to go down and actually talk a little bit about, and spend a few minutes here talking about Freytag's pyramid, or Freytag's arc plot structure, and how that actually connects to Aristotle. So I'm just, for the sake of everything right now, I'm just going to draw here. Holy crap, that is a crooked line. Don't tell anybody that I can't draw a straight line. Okay, here we go. So there's a y-axis, and here's the x-axis. And they're a little crooked, but that's okay. We're going to label each of these axes two different things. We're not going to label them x and y. We're actually going to label the x-axis time, and we're going to label the y-axis tension. And we're not going to add any measurements or anything like that, on these. We're not going to add ticks along the line, like here. But we are just going to draw. And the arc plot looks something like this. So usually very, very low on the tension scale, there's, this piece here. And let's label this line segment A. Then there's a point where everything changes a little bit. We're going to label this point B on the diagram. What happens at point B is that the line segment, the angle, increases dramatically. If you were in finance and tracking numbers and money and growth of stock, this would be a very, very good sign. However, if you look over here, over time, as this line increases, it grows also in tension. So in terms of our story, it may or may not be a good thing. We're going to label this C. Okay. Once it reaches its apex, which is the very, very tip-top point of the tension, and you can see almost that it's almost exactly in line with, as high as our graph goes, it's the highest point of tension in the story. We've got another turning point, and that looks like a P, but it's actually point D, obviously. And then what happens after you hit this is that it takes a drastic plummet in terms of tension. Let's label this line segment E, and it kind of levels out at F. So what we've got going on here is, this is what is called Freytag's pyramid. It indicates the amount of tension that a character, the protagonist in the story, experiences as he or she goes along the timeline of the story. As time ticks on, he or she experiences an increase in tension. And by the way, can I also say, this increase in tension affects not only the protagonist, but also the reader. Talk about that a little bit. So we're not going to clutter up this diagram. It's actually quite a nice diagram, but I'm going to label down here in the legend, I'm going to label each of these items. Letter A is what is referred to as the inciting, sorry, not the inciting incident. It's the exposition. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger here so we can see it. It's the exposition. Exposition is the point in our story where the reader or the audience is being explained to, right? The root word of exposition is what, everybody? Look at this. Look at this here, right here. Not exposit. That's not a word. It's actually expose. What does it mean to expose? It means to show, right? To bring out, to expose. Ex means out in Latin. and it means to bring out, to pose out, right? To show out, expose. So that's what we're talking about here. It means to show the reader what real life is, what's happening in terms of the character's real life, okay? Point B on this line is really important. It is one of the most important parts of the story, and it's the turning point for the character. It is called the inciting incident. Wow, I spelled that wrong. Please don't tell Harms. She will not let me live this down. Inciting incident. This is kind of the point of no return. This is the point in the story where the character is never going to return to normal. It's the point of the story that changes the character dramatically from the beginning. Think about in episode 4, for instance, when Luke comes home and finds his aunt and uncle murdered and burned to death. That allows the character to completely go off in a different direction, and Luke's life is never the same again. This is the point in that story that changes everything. Everything. Exclamation mark. C in the story, you guys might have heard of this before. We're going to call this the rising action. Oh, I'm infringing here. Rising action. The rising action is simply increasing tension and obstacles. And this is always posed to our protagonist. Next, we've got D up here. You can look at that. D, the apex of tension. This is called everybody. No? You don't have it? Okay. It's called the climax. The climax is the highest point of tension in the story. And really, quite literally, everything is downhill from the climax. Highest tension. I don't have enough room here, so I'm just going to change this to an E. You'll notice right here, guys, that line segment E, look how much tension is dropped. I mean, this line goes in the direction of down. Look how much tension is dropped. And look at the point in time that this tension drops, right? I mean, it takes so long for the tension to rise, okay, that when the tension drops, it's over a very, 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 very short amount of time. It's very, very quick. This is called, it's the opposite of rising action. Everybody? Ah, yes, I heard that. It's called falling action. It can also be called a resolution, but if you call it that, you're wrong. It's not the resolution at all. It's the falling action. It's the events that follow the climax that begin to tie up the story. Okay, kind of the opposite of rising action, increasing tension. There's actually all of the events in this section of the story decrease tension. Okay, and then F, very simply, is called, this is the resolution, and this is where point in the story where, you know, the author will begin to tie a great big bow up. He'll take or she'll take all of the things that the other, you know, loose ends of the story, and everything is tied up in a nice little bow. Loose ends tied up. So, wow, I had a lot more room in that I could have written, but you guys can add your own notes to that. This is Freytag's pyramid, basically, in a nutshell. How this ties into Aristotle's 3-act structure, I'm going to talk about in the next video, because that's also really important, okay? So flip on over to the next video if you want to hear how this all connects to the guy in the toga. I'll see you there.